Hello, my name is Bill Galic, and I will be your instructor for the Introduction to Social Work this semester. This is Social Work 206. This course is one that I've actually been teaching off and on for the last 25 years. My original class in the University of Alaska system, in fact, was at Kenai Peninsula College in, I don't know, the late 1980s, early 1990s, and this was the course that I taught. I have been teaching for over 60 semesters now for the university system in Alaska, both at Kenai Peninsula College and more recently online for the University of Alaska Anchorage's School of Social Work. My my course teaching, I should say, has included many different classes in sociology as well as human services and social work. I want to tell you a little bit about myself for those of you that don't know me. Those of you that do, please bear with me. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself just so you know why it is that I'm the person that's teaching this course to you. I have a bachelor's degree in social work from Michigan State in 1974, and I got a master's degree in social work, my MSW, at Florida State University in 1983. Altogether, I have something over 40-some years of experience working in the field in different areas, including financial eligibility, the AFTC, and food stamp eligibility in Central Florida. For a period of time, I worked in child protection in Florida, carrying a caseload of troubled families. I worked in residential care and treatment, a children's home, where children who were removed from their families were placed while they waited for foster care or to be returned to their families. Did that in Central Florida for about 7 years. Moved to Alaska in the later part of the 1980s and worked for several years as a mental health therapist in Kenai, and then was hired by the state of Alaska to supervise the child protection functions on the Kenai Peninsula in 1995. I spent the next 19 years doing that, and towards the end my efforts were focused upon supervising the intake and investigations, now called Initial Assessment Unit, in the Kenai office. In addition to this, I volunteered as a Big Brother in the Big Brothers program, both in Michigan and in Florida, and spent several years hosting foreign exchange students as well. And so I've a number of different areas of interest in the social work field, and think that this variety of experience will be something that will help me bring some meaning to some of these lessons to you as you kind of look through the different areas of interest that this course will suggest to you for the social work field, and you begin to get an idea of what it is maybe you want to do with your involvement in this field. You'll see here my contact information. The university prefers that we communicate with each other via email with the university email system, and my address is there. I will also add, however, that my Comcast address is private. I live alone, or I should say I live with my old husky, and he isn't reading so well anymore, and so you can kind of count on your emails to me at my Comcast address being private as well. My phone number is the local phone number there for Northeast Indiana where I live, and also there's a cell phone number that is a local number for Alaskans. And so if you don't have a national calling plan, you can call my cell phone, which is a local number for you if you're in Alaska. In both cases, there's a message machine that you can leave a message if I don't pick up. I'm going to tell you, though, that probably the quickest way to reach me is via email. I do check both emails regularly. I certainly check the Comcast address more frequently than I do the university address, but as I'll tell you later in the semester, it's very important for us to keep up with our university email as well, and so I make every effort to stay regular in those contacts in the university email as well. I don't have an office. I'm in Indiana, and so, as I said, it's going to be kind of hard to meet face to face in person. However, I have Apple machines all around my house, and so I am FaceTime capable. I can download Skype if you prefer Skype, and we can communicate that well. And that way, and I also have a Facebook account, and we can communicate through Facebook messaging if you prefer that method. It seems to be easier and easier nowadays to see people as well as talk to them. And so anytime you need to talk with me or communicate with me, feel free to use any of these methods of communication. Also, Blackboard has its Collaborate function, which frankly I haven't used. I the last time I used a collaborate function, it was called eLive, and I found it to be kind of clunky, frankly, and so that's one of the reasons why this course, you'll notice, is entirely asynchronous. So we don't have any meeting times that we get together once a week. We don't have to get in front of our computers together. You will decide when you work in this class, and I'll be telling you, you'll want to keep up with this week by week by week, but it's up to you to decide when during the week you do your work. So in any event, this is a course that you'll kind of work at your own pace as each week goes along. So a little bit about the text that we're going to be working out of. This is the primary text. It's a second edition of a book called Social Work in the 21st Century. Morley Glicken is the author. And what I like about this text, I'll tell you about first, is that it is very all-encompassing, and it actually covers more fields than we actually talk about in this class, but it does cover, I think, every nook and cranny of the kinds of things that social workers do in the field, and I like it because of that, because it gives you an idea just how broad this field is and how virtually any interest can fit into the social work profession, and any talent you might have that kind of add to your professional skills as well. And so I like this text, and I like Mr. Glicken's kind of approach and attitude about things. He raises some questions about things that we assume to be true in the field that really shouldn't be assumed, and you'll be exposed to that fairly early in your readings. And I think he takes a pretty honest look at the different fields and the pluses and minuses of each area of intervention. On the downside to this text, it doesn't talk a whole lot about how you put your skills to use. It tells you about the things social workers do, but not how best they might do them. And I think that's something that we should at least get introduced to in an introductory to social work course. And so that's why we have the other text. And this text is actually more of a reader, although it has, I call it the reader because it's not the primary text, but it is an important text, and I think in many ways you're going to like this in a very different way from the Glicken text. And this is the 9th edition of a book called Working with People. This book originally was written by a social worker by the name of Naomi Brill, and it became very widely used in the profession, as I understand it, in education for a long time. Miss Brill, I guess, has died, and Miss Levine was a co-author at different times and has taken over the authorship and updating of this text over the years. And I think you'll really like this book. It has a real heart to its content, and it really kind of tells you about the hows of going about connecting with people and techniques that you use in order to do that. And so I think this book, along with the Glicken text, give you a good introduction to not only what you might do in the field, but also how best you might go about doing that. Now, each of those areas need further development, and you can't cover those kinds of things in an introductory course, of course, but it gives you a good taste of what's ahead for you in the profession. And so I hope you will appreciate both textbooks. Your tests later on this semester will cover material in both of these books. Now, the course syllabus is available to you in the class, and if you haven't already done this, and I hope you have, you should find the syllabus in the course menu in Blackboard. Open that, click on that link, and download the Word version of the course syllabus and print it out. Have a hard copy of it handy, please, in front of you at all times. I know that we've gone very digital, and a lot of people don't keep hard copies of things around, but I think it's real important to keep a hard copy of the syllabus handy. Maybe it's just my old guy preferences, I don't know, but please do that, and refer back to it if you need to during the semester. You'll find there's a lot of great information in there. There are some things in there that talk about your participation and how you go about earning those points, how to respond to a discussion board post and how not to, and those kinds of things, as well as just some of the basics about the course. So be sure to read through it page by page and let me know if you have any questions. Now, I have to tell you, the syllabus, sometimes just through experience, I find as the semester goes along, I have to revise it a little bit here and there, and if any revisions are made to the syllabus, they'll be posted in Blackboard in the syllabus, at the syllabus link, and you will be notified by email of that. But at this point, I don't expect any revisions to come up during the semester. So now the next several slides are going to deal with the grading in this course and how you're going to go about earning the points you need. As you can see, there's a total of 670 points that you can possibly earn in the course, plus an additional 30 points that is available for as bonus points as the semester goes along. But if you get 670 points, if you score 670 points through all the different activities, you have 100%. And so, you can actually get a little bit over 100% if you get all those bonus points too. You get your points, as you can see here, through participation and attendance, and you participate and attend by going into Blackboard and participating in the discussion board forums and journal posts and your group project and things. We'll be talking about that here in a few moments, but Blackboard tells me when you have last checked in, and I can see that, and so there are ways I can tell if you're really participating or not, looking at it all, or checking out for 3 weeks at a time or whatever. And so please understand that participation and attendance still applies in an online course. There are discussion boards and journals that are altogether worth 280 of those 670 points. You have 2 group site check-ins, and I'll explain that a little bit later. You have a written project. This is your major project, which you're going to do with 2 to 4 other students in a group. And that might be difficult for you to imagine if you haven't ever done a group project online before, but it is very easy, very possible to do. Once your papers are done, you're going to find them all posted in a discussion board forum, and you're going to be able to read each other's papers, and you're going to get graded on comments that you make in a discussion board forum about your classmates' projects as well as your own. And finally, there are 2 tests, one for 40 points and one for 60 points. I will tell you a bit more about them later on, but they're intended to be user-friendly so that you don't have to stress out too much about how preparing for the test or anything like that. But more about that in a second. Your grading scale for this class is the standard scale that you have in probably all your other classes. Is basically 90, 80, 70%, that kind of thing. So you just do your math. 90% times 670 is how many points you need for an A, and so on. And again, the different elements of grading, there's the 50 points for participation and attendance, as I mentioned earlier. Your discussion boards are going to be a fairly large portion of your grade. Now, 10 points a week you can earn in discussion boards. There are occasionally, as you see at the bottom, there are 2 discussion boards in a learning unit, and that's 2 in 1 week. And that happens 3 times during the semester, and that's where you can earn your bonus points by actually participating in both discussion boards when they're available. But again, a little bit later on, we'll talk a little more about that. But you're going to have reading assignments posted every week for you, and then you'll have some lectures that are recorded by me that you'll listen to, such as this. And then once you've done the reading and once you've listened to the lectures, then the next step is to go in and respond to the question that I have posed in the discussion board forum. This is all available through Blackboard, through your learning unit. You'll see how that works. And then and your original post should be a minimum of 150 words. That's not a lot. That really isn't a lot. That's a small paragraph. But it should be a minimum of 150 words, and I encourage you to write more than that. I mean, turn this into something meaningful and generate some discussion. So you're to do that within a week after the learning unit opens. So each week's studies, each week's learning unit opens on a Sunday morning. So by the following Sunday evening, you are to have made your original post in Blackboard in the discussion board forum. And then by the Thursday after that, you should have gone back in, read a couple of your classmates' posts, because this is a public post, a public forum in your class. Read a couple of your classmates' posts, at least 2, and respond to them in a meaningful way. It doesn't have to be 150 words for your responses, but the responses should be meaningful. That means not just, yeah, I agree, or no, you're wrong, but if you agree, why you agree, or if you don't, why not. If you have other thoughts related to that, make those thoughts, but make the response a meaningful response. When you notice in the discussion boards, if you click on a button that says, it gives you the option to subscribe to the thread, I think it is, or subscribe to the forum, you will get an email, I believe, in your university account. I think that's how it works anyway, that advises you when someone has responded to your account or to your comment. And so you can go back in and read what they wrote. And this is just a good way. I mean, really, kind of use this as an opportunity for discussion. You can get your full 10 points if you put in, a decent initial post and a couple meaningful responses. But if you want to do this more than just simply, get your points in this, but to do something useful with this, get a discussion going with your classmates, and you'll find that this is going to be very much like sitting around a table. So you see here how it will go. Assignments with your question will open on Sunday, February the 5th. During the week, you read your readings, you listen to the lectures. Then by the end of that week, you go in, you make your original post to the discussion board question. And then within a few days after that, you've gone back in and read other people's posts and made a few responses to their posts. So that's actually, if you look at that, it's like 10, 11 days after the discussion board opened, or the lesson opened and the discussion board opened to begin with. And then the following weekend, a couple of days later, is when I'll go in and grade them. I usually wait until everybody's had an opportunity to make all of their posts and responses before I go in and grade it. So really, it's about 2 weeks later you're going to get, after the unit opens, that you'll get a grade on the discussion board. So your original post and 2 responses earn you 10 points each. And again, 3 times during a semester there will be 2 discussion boards in a learning unit, so that you can actually earn twice the number of points. After you've done the discussion board, you're going to find the next thing in Blackboard is your journal, or I call it the weekly e-scrapbook. And what this is basically the current events post. And the intention of this is to help you understand that this is not a static topic. This is a lively topic. It is alive all around you in the news. We are in the midst of a very interesting political time in this nation, whether we like it or whether we don't. And this is going to have a serious impact upon the kinds of services that are available to our clients, as well as to the kinds of environments in which we'll be able to do our work or not do the work we want to do. And so I advise you to keep apprised of the news, read the newspaper, look at magazines. And I know, again, hard copy stuff is getting to be old hat. I can't imagine starting a day without having a newspaper in my box out front, but a lot of people don't do that anymore. But wherever you get your news, make sure it's good news. It's not fake news. It's not disinformation. I really encourage you to expand beyond Facebook as your source of news. Expand beyond Fox News if you watch television, and don't just listen to MSNBC or NPR if you're liberally minded as well, but expose yourself to a variety of sources: conservative, liberal, print media, electronic media, television, and not, so that you have a broad exposure to the different kinds of opinions, because you're going to find that those opinions affect the news you get. All the news sources filter what they tell you, and so you have to take all this and put it together and really kind of think about it a little bit if you're going to really understand what's happening in the world and make good informed decisions as an adult. What this journal is about is you're going to just pick one topic related to social work or human rights or civil rights or other issues, social welfare perhaps, or education, whatever it is that social workers work in, and find one article, one story about that, briefly summarize that in a paragraph, and then write a response to that, response to that article of about 150 words minimum, and then post that in your journal. Now this post is private between you and me, so I'm the only person who will read it, and I unlike the discussion boards where I won't always be participating in discussions, because that's really something for you guys. I do chime in from time to time, and trust me, I monitor the discussion boards every week when I grade them. Occasionally I'll respond personally in those discussion boards, but in your journal I'm going to respond every week as much as possible in a direct way to the things that you have posted. And so please do go back. There's nothing to advise you when I make a comment in your journal, so go back in and check your journal post again a couple weeks later, and you'll find my response to your comment as well. This is something I really want you to not fall behind on, if at all possible, because it's really about current events, and so try to keep up with these each week. And if you're posting journal entries, several weeks later or even a few weeks later, you'll probably lose some points just because you're not keeping up current. And again, the intention of this is to keep you attuned to the news while the class is going on as well. So between the 10 points in most weeks for your discussion board and 10 points for your journal, those together work out to 20 points, and so that's where the 280 points come in for the semester. There's a good description of how to make good discussion board entries and good journal entries. In fact, there is an example of what I consider to be an excellent journal entry. It really uses the format that I want you to use, so please do go into board and journal grading guidelines and or look at how your post will earn points in this week's weekly course content to see exactly how you should do this. Now, the group project is something which can be one of your best learning experiences during the semester, and also perhaps your biggest burden. I have seen some groups that have worked together phenomenally well. I really don't even get letters or emails of concern about somebody not working on the project. Some groups seem to know exactly how to divide up the work and what it is to research so that they turn in a good project, and together they produce this project that is just excellent. There have been other groups that have one or two people that are slackers. I've had some groups where somebody doesn't even show up at all. And one time I had, in a group of 4, I had one poor person doing the entire project herself, but that's extremely rare. That's only ever happened one time in all the semesters I've been teaching online, and this is something I have done in every online class. And so what I'm here to tell you is this is going to be the work part of the class. And I mean, reading and listening to me is certainly has got its own share of burdens for you, but I mean, this is an area that well, it depends on how your group divvies it up. And the first thing I'll tell you is don't delay on this. When group assignments go out, and that'll probably be in about 3 or 4 weeks, please make contact with your fellow group members right away through email or whatever other means you have available to you, and get on it and keep on it. And you're going to find this project's going to flow very smoothly. So you and from 2 to 4 other classmates will be assigned to the study of a particular minority group. And so the idea here is to expose you to issues regarding diversity in our society. And this is something that social workers, of course, need to be very aware of. All of the groups that you're going to study are members or are groups of individuals who you will encounter in your social work career. And so it is worth doing some research to understand one group in particular better. And when you read the other group's projects later in the semester, you're going to find that there's a wealth of information there for you that will help you in your practice in years ahead. So you're going to be assigned to a group, and then you and your classmates will put together one paper. So there will be one unified paper. So really, in this paper, I think I've asked for about 5,000 words in this, which works out to somewhere, it depends on what particular style font you choose, but somewhere around the neighborhood of 14, 15 pages, give or take. But you've only, got one portion of that, technically speaking, to write, if at least if you divide it up as it is traditionally divided up. But one paper gets submitted, not 3 or 4 separate papers connected together, but one paper, so that somebody will need to take responsibility for editing and kind of unifying it. And again, there are suggestions given to you in the Blackboard course, which I'm going to tell you about in a second, that will help you figure out how to do this properly. You get a workspace assigned to you in the Blackboard course that only you and your other group members have access to, so you can share information there. You can communicate by discussion boards just with each other. You have each other's email addresses, those kinds of things. And I'm the only other person that can look in on that just to make sure things are going as they should be. Now, sometimes class members have asked about being assigned to a particular topic or to work with a particular individual, and these are random assignments, and because, just to be fair, I can't assign 2 people together because they want to work together or anything like this. There will be an announcement made in class when in Blackboard when the time comes that the groups are formed and you're assigned your topic. And so keep an eye open for that. You'll see it happen in about 3 or 4 weeks. That's 150 points. That's a big part of your grade. So after your papers are completed, you'll submit them to me in your group work site and in a spot called the File Exchange, which is incidentally also a place where you and your fellow group mates can share resources and things like that as well in composing the paper. But you will submit your final paper in the group file exchange. I will download it. I'm still back in the days where I like to handwrite my comments on papers, and I upload it back to you so that you each have a copy there. You can pull it right off the file exchange with your grade. I'm also going to take a clean version of your paper that is unmarked up by me and post it in a discussion board forum, and this will happen about a month before the semester is over. And for 3 weeks, your classmates will be able to read your paper and then participate in discussion boards on the topic, and you can participate in that as well. And so again, a good discussion about your project and about the particular topic as well. It's really a great way to learn about specialized things and to share your research with your fellow classmates and everything like this. And after all of the work that's going to go into this, I think you'll appreciate the opportunity to show others what you found and to find out what they've done as well. So the discussion boards related to this are each worth about 50 points. Testing. Two tests, one in week 7, I believe, and another in week 14. The first for 40 points, the last for 60 points. The tests open in the weeks I mentioned, and again, you'll get plenty of notification about that. And they will stay open for 11 days. You don't have to go to any like testing center or to anywhere. You take your test sitting at home. You can have your books open, obviously. However, it's going to be to your benefit to have read the material because you're going to need to know the material. You can't look up the answer to every question. At least be familiar enough that you know where to look. You'll have 11 days to complete the test. Now, the thing is, you can't open the test and then go back to it 3 days later and fill in the answers. You have to, once you've opened the test, you have to complete the test within 90 minutes. And so that's why I say that, you really need to kind of read ahead on this. You don't think you're going to go in not having read it and do well. If you don't like the first score that you get when you've completed the test, and again, it will close after 90 minutes if you haven't completed it. And so if you only got 3 questions answered and leave it for 90 minutes, that's it. You're going to get credit for three answers. And so you have 90 minutes to take the test. Once you've opened it, you can't stop it and resume it. But if you don't like your first result, the score you get isn't what you want, you can take the test a second time during those 11 days. Now, you'll get different questions from the material. It's not going to be the same test, but you can take a second test, and the higher of your 2 scores are the ones that will be recorded. So more about that when the time comes, but I try to make this as I said, user-friendly, stress-free as possible for you. Once the test is closed at the end of those 11 days, it's not available anymore, so you have to make sure you take the test during that time period. What will happen is in week 7, for instance, test 1 is going to open on Thursday morning, and it will close not the next Sunday, but the Sunday after that, so it will be open for 11 days, including that Sunday, that last Sunday. And so you have to go in and take the test right there in your Blackboard course during those 11 days, and you can do it a second time during the 11 days if you wish. But once it's closed, it's closed. Remember again, 30 additional points for 3 extra discussion boards that will pop up during the semester. I would encourage you not to blow this off. I've seen some students they'll answer both discussion board questions, but instead of doing the original post of 150 words or more plus 2 good responses, maybe they just do 2 additional posts so that they figure, well, that covers 10 points. But see, they're losing the other 10 points. They're losing their extra points. So go in and fully participate in both discussion boards all 3 times. And you're going to find out those 30 points are going to be more useful to you later in the semester than you might imagine. Okay, so much for grading elements. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what else is in the Blackboard course. First, announcements. The course opens up to announcements in Blackboard, and these announcements are information that I think are important to you. If we were in a classroom setting, as everybody gets seated and we're about to start the lecture, I might say to you, before we get started, I want to tell you something. And this is something you all need to know. That's what these announcements are all about. And so please be sure when you open the course, look and see if there's a new announcement, one that you haven't seen yet. Because this is how I communicate with you, and these are very important. Now, if you check your university email account regularly and frequently. You'll get every announcement that I post in your email as well. So watch for them in your email. If you see announcements turning up in the course that you haven't gotten in your email, I would suggest you check with IT, because it may be that something's not working right in your university account. I get bounce back messages occasionally and have no way to tell you because your email's bouncing back. So you're going to have to really keep up with that yourself, I'm afraid. The most important link, I think, in the Blackboard course is called Weekly Course Content. And if you click on the Weekly Course Content button, each Sunday morning you're going to see a new week's content come available to you. The previous week's content will also be there, and although you don't see the ones coming up, you see the current weeks plus the past weeks as well. Make sure you read every slide in each week's content to the end. And your assignments are posted here, my lectures are posted here, access to the discussion board and journals are posted here. And mind you, you can reach the discussion board forums and your journals through the menu on the left. And it used to be that I never made them available to you on the course menu, because what I found is some students would go in, click on discussion board, click on journal, and skip all the content and just make some comment, so they get those points and don't really do the reading and don't really listen to the lectures or anything. And so they're not really responding to the content. They're just responding to what other people are saying. And I just want to encourage you not to do that. And I just decided in the end, we're all grown-ups here, and you're an adult, and, this is your learning experience. So don't cheat yourself by doing that. But if you have to get in quickly to, for instance, to respond to discussion boards, other students' posts or something like that, you don't have to go back through the content and click through the course content to get to that discussion board. You can use the course menu to do that. But otherwise, you're going to find your discussion board access and your journal access in the weekly course content. And here's really what you can expect to find each week in your weekly course content. And this is a minimum. Sometimes there are some additional ones, but you can count on this stuff pretty much being there almost every week. And that is an opening slide. This is something that I've written, also with probably my photograph also. I mean, not a picture of me, but a photograph that I've taken as well, just to point that out to you. It's just some thoughts I have about the content that you're going to be reading the content. And to ask you to kind of think about, get your thinking going in the way I want it to be thinking before you go into the material. The next slide is going to have some learning objectives for the week. The next slide will have your reading assignments and sometimes a few other assignments that aren't necessarily reading for the week. And a little summary of what each assignment has to do with it. You'll find weekly course, recorded weekly course lectures there, 2 to 4 lectures mostly every week. And I know that sounds like a lot, but the fact is what they've told us to do, what they encourage us to do, I should say, is to make those lectures shorter so that, well, a lot of times this is on the go, and I know a lot of students are accessing the course through their phones and their tablets and things like that. And so rather than give you if you were sitting in class with me, we would have 2.5 hours of class time face to face, and we'd be going over material together. Now, granted, we don't have the give and the take with these recorded lectures that we would have in a classroom, but essentially, when I say 2.5 hours, that's a standard lecture each week, a standard class time each week, and so that's aside from your homework, right? I mean, that's your standard lecture time, or class time. So you should consider these course lectures your class time. You'll have 2 to 4 of them, but instead of having one 2.5 hour lecture, you're going to find they're broken up into maybe 4 half-hour lectures or something like that, so that you can access them in smaller bites. Now, there are 1 or 2 weeks where I think you'll find I actually do have 2.5 hours of content there. But in most weeks, there's far less than 2.5 hours. And I think in 1 or 2 weeks, there may be barely more than an hour. But for the most part, you're probably going to, I think on average, probably 90 minutes of lectures, give or take, again. And some of them are probably a little livelier than others, but I'm going to try to keep you entertained at least, and get you thinking about things. I'm not just reading these slides to you. I'm actually kind of sharing some of my thoughts about this material. So I hope that you find them to be informative and useful to you. The next thing you're going to find are the discussion board links, and that's called Response to Reading. Usually you just click on that, underline title, and it'll take you to the discussion board. Then you'll have a journal. Oh, and with the discussion board, I don't think you can, I'd have to check again on the more recent Blackboard version, but I don't think you can just click your next arrow to go on to the next slide when you're in the discussion boards. I think you have to actually use your browser's back button to get back into the class. That's just kind of a fluke in how this is set up. Likewise for the journals, you can access them there through your weekly course content. It'll take you to the journal page. You may again have to use the back button to get there. They're both pretty intuitive. Once you get there, you'll see. You click on the journal for the week. You click on the discussion board form of the week, and you'll see where it says add entry or add thread or respond or whatever. So. And again, remember with the discussion boards, if you click on subscribe to this thread, it will inform you when people respond to your comments. Or you can do that to anybody's responses, by the way. So if you're particularly interested in a discussion about some other student's thread, you can subscribe to that thread as well and get notified if you want to keep participating in the discussion. After the journal link, you'll find the slides from the PowerPoint or Keynote presentation that I use. It doesn't have audio in it, but the slides are there. So if you like to print them out, download them and print them out for review purposes or whatever, you can do that. And then there's a closing slide, which is again something that I write to kind of tie up all this into one spot, and I do hope you read them. I put a lot of thought into my opening and closing slides and what I say there for you. Occasionally there are other slides that you'll access through the weekly course content, including tests when they open up, the course evaluations later in the semester, those kinds of things. And so you'll see some extra things from time to time, but at a minimum you can look for these 8 different objects in the weekly course content. So please be sure to go through all of them. I once had a student in a sociology class some years back tell me he didn't realize there was more than one slide, and he'd read the opening slide and call it a class. And I think he was 4 or 5 weeks in and taken a couple of tests before he realized that he was missing some things. I don't think he was too engaged with the course. Now, if you've been in online courses before, you're familiar with the concept of netiquette. And I just want to touch on this a little. The idea here isn't so much as to kind of wag my finger at you, but just to remind you a few things. And most of you are digital natives, by now, and so a lot of this stuff. Some of us older folks need to be reminded of this, but I think sometimes younger people as well. That really, when we interact online, sometimes it's very easy to forget there are real people who are on the other side of our interactions. That this is a class, this is a university setting. It's not a chat room. It's not, you're not in Facebook discussions or anything like this. This is a serious classroom setting. We're exchanging ideas, and in this exchange of ideas, people should be able to speak their opinions, do so respectfully now, mind you, and with regard to other people, but to be able to express their opinions and feel safe in doing that. If you have a disagreement with another person, then you disagree with that idea, not with the person. I really said that wrong. If you have a disagreement about what another person says, disagree with the opinion, but never assault or derogate or belittle a person because of their beliefs or stances. Remember too, when you say things, again, political correctness, there's a lot of talk about that and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think political correctness is very appropriate. I think that we have to be aware of the fact that things that we say sometimes deeply offend other people. And if we're not careful about that, we can offend people, without really even giving it a thought. And so we don't want to do that, again, because we're not able to read each other's reactions to what we say and write when we sit in front of our computer screen, or we're looking at our phone, or we're looking at our tablet or something like this. You can't always see those things. And so follow these simple rules, and there's more of it in this week's course content on how to interact with others. And because all you have here are the written things that people are saying. You don't see you can't tell their tone of voice. You can't see how they're reacting. You can't read people's body language. You don't know when people are joking or not necessarily. And so just be conscious of this when you make entries. One of the things I ask students to do is to don't use internet shorthand in your writings. This is a university class, and when you submit papers to the court, say for instance, from a job, or you're I don't know, you're presenting some sort of paper in a professional setting or something like this, you're not going to put in LOLs and those kinds of things in your papers. Don't do this in your discussion boards. As much as possible, let's skip the emojis here, and let's say what we're thinking and feeling, okay? Because this is a university classroom setting. Never ever threaten another student. Never post comments that are derogatory. Be conscious of appropriateness in terms of sexual references and those kinds of things. We do have to follow Title IX requirements, and so if anyone's offended or feeling threatened, it's something I have to report to the university. So I don't run into this in these classes, and I don't expect I will here either, but please be conscious of this. Be forgiving of other people's mistakes as well. Sometimes people say things and they really don't mean to be offensive, but do your best to police this for yourselves. So for this week, you do have a discussion board to complete. Again, you're going to write a post of about 150 words, and really you're just going to be talking about yourself and whatever you're comfortable with here. I like to encourage students to include photographs. It doesn't have to be a picture of you, although I would love that if it did, but it can be photographs of favorite places you've been, of your pet, of your kids, your family photograph, I don't know, whatever you're interested in. But if you're comfortable with this, go ahead and attach a photograph to it. It always makes posts more interesting. And do that throughout the semester if you want. Don't certainly, your posts are going to be focused on words, but occasionally you can throw in a little bit of visual aids there. It will be nice. So this week, you're writing a little bit about maybe why you're taking the class, or what interests you, where are you from, where do you think you're going to go with your career, what are the important things in your background. These kinds of things will be sort of an icebreaker, but it gives you a chance to get to know who else is sitting in the class with you. So remember, you make your original post by next Sunday night, and then go back in within the next 3 or 4 days and respond to your classmates' posts. So this is your opportunity to welcome each other. And in the weeks ahead, now there is no journal post in week 1, but beginning in week 2, you'll have a journal post. So watch the news for current events related to social work, civil rights, other social work related issues. And you see some examples here. These are things that, gosh, I just have such a scratchy voice this week. Sorry. These are things that are turning up in the news these days and will continue to turn up throughout the semester. And there are many other areas as well. Sometimes I've had a few students over the years that get caught up in these like anecdotes of these, the mother starved 6 children and their bones have been dug up in, sent New Orleans, Louisiana or something like this, I don't know. Those stories are okay once, but really, let's not focus on the sensational things that go on in our society. I mean, sometimes they're worth doing that. I'm not saying never, but I'm just saying let's not have that kind of sensationalist view. This isn't, it's not Facebook. And so, look for serious topics out there that have some meaning on an ongoing basis and in a broader perspective. So your first journal entry will be in week 2. Again, I go back to board and journal guidelines and look. There's an example of a great journal entry from a few semesters back by one of my students. What she did was she had the title of the article, she cited the source of the article, she gave a brief summary of what the article says, and then her reaction of 150 words or more. So I think that's it for this presentation, finally. Here's a quote by Albert Schweitzer that I like to close this week's presentation on. Albert Schweitzer was a humanitarian that was very well known in the middle of the last century. And I think he was a physicist as well. He was a very intelligent person, to say the least. And so what he said one time was that the final decision as to what the future of a society shall be depends not on how near its organization is to perfection, but on the degrees of worthiness of its individual members. I think this quote has quite an implication for the social work profession. We are individual members of our society. We are participating in our efforts, whether it's on an individual basis or a larger societal level or both, to try to make our society better through our contributions to other individuals and to humanity in general. And so I think that Albert Schweitzer would be pleased with the development of social work and all these new people coming into the field. I welcome you to the field. I hope that the course helps you to find your way, and if you know where you're going, to affirm that decision. If you don't know, it helps you kind of get a pointer as to maybe where you want to go. Please feel free to contact me at any time during the semester. Again, this is my pleasure to do this for you, and I feel privileged to be a part of your education in the field. So, till the next time, that's it for now. Thank you.